morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, July 17, 2024, a cooler day than we've had the days past. It's a good welcome. So we want to welcome everyone here as well as in the chambers, as well as watch on some form of social media. So we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's start with a roll call, why don't we? Let's start with the first.
Mayor Skidmore?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Allen?
Present.
Commissioner Kaler?
Present.
Commissioner Clayton?
Present.
And Commissioner Crowley?
Present.
Wonderful. Everybody's here. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation by Pastor Timothy Roth, the First Lutheran Church.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. O sovereign God, by your omnipotent hand you have given us dominion over your creation and established all governing authorities. Yet we, through the abuse of our liberty, you have brought sin and death to your good creation. In our fall, you have given governing authorities the sword to curb our sin and establish justice and to promote peace. You commanded them to approve those who do what is good and right according to your will, and to bring your wrath upon those who do wrong in rebellion. Therefore we pray your Spirit be upon your servants, that they wield the sword according to your command, enlighten them and defend them as they deliberate and fulfill their duty. Grant them divine wisdom and understanding, guide and protect them for the sake of your people and the general welfare of the citizens of Ottawa. Help them to fulfill their responsibilities with integrity by turning to your statutes and following your will. In your almighty name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Very timely words. Thank you. We'll start with public comments. Do we have any?
We do. We have one registered. Eric Dunderstad.
Okay, Eric, come on up. Let me just read this before you get started here. Subject to the above restrictions, persons who wish to address the City Commission regarding items on the agenda may do so as that agenda item is called. Persons who wish to address the City Commission regarding items not on the agenda and that are under the jurisdiction of the City Commission may do so at this time when called upon by the mayor. Comments on personnel matters and matters pending in court or with other outside tribunals are not permitted. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Any presentation is for information purposes only. The governing body will take comments under advisement. Go right ahead.
Thank you, commissioners, and thank you for this opportunity to be here before you today. I'm here today to express my strong support for the Ottawa Main Street Association as you consider the funding request for our community partners in advance of finalizing the 2025 budget. I'm also here as a lifelong resident of this county, as well as a Main Street property owner and a newly appointed member of the Main Street Board. Yet this is my first time appearing before this group here today, and it's not something I'd typically consider doing if I didn't believe strongly in the values and the causes which our Main Street Association is devoted to. I don't have a lot of time today, so I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about all the positive experiences I've had with the Main Street Association. I've highlighted some of those in a recent letter that I pinned to this group while you were considering the funding request. It's my understanding you've received several other letters of support from community members as well. Rather, I'd like to use the time today to say that I do realize that there are other organizations that are vying for these dollars. I also understand that budgets are often tight and many municipalities are struggling with budgets. Making increases like this are not often easy things to do. But I ask that you give pause and you think sincerely about considering granting the submitted funding request from the Main Street Association this year. It's often easy to have the mindset to sit back and wait till times are better or improved to do those increases, but I cannot express how detrimental I feel that approach would be at this time. Not only to the momentum that the association has shown recently in the community, but also in a larger context to the advancement of our downtown in general and the businesses that are there. Your continued and your expanded support of the Main Street Association will allow that group to meet the current challenges and future challenges that they're faced with. And those are challenges that will require a full-time director to navigate. I'll finish with this thought. Just in my lifetime here in Franklin County, the Main Street has seen a lot of changes. We've seen some significant losses downtown. My perception of the downtown since I was a child growing up here is one of decline, unfortunately. And I'd ask you, many of you have been in this community for many years. I'd ask you to take a moment and think to yourselves how the Main Street's changed since you've been here. My daughter is here today, and last week she told me how much she enjoys growing up in Ottawa, and that's all something we should all be proud of. But I think about what her Ottawa and what her Main Street will be like if we don't continue to move forward and take real steps to make sure that we preserve our downtown and our Main Street. So thank you for your time today and your consideration.
Eric, thanks for your words. Your last name carries a lot of respect and credibility, so we'll take that under advisement. We appreciate you coming and speaking and bringing your best fan too, so glad to be here too. We'll go on to item 7. We've got some recognitions this morning. Recognition of John Thompson Jr. and Chad Pickert for the completion of Emerging Leaders Academy through the University of Kansas Public Management Center. And City Manager Silcott has got this under.
Yes, Mayor and Commission, we just wanted to highlight the accomplishments of these two gentlemen, both Chad and John, for their work and commitment to improving not only themselves but the service that they bring to our community and to our organization. In your packet, you have a background information on what the Emerging Leadership Academy is and the commitment that it requires from the participants, as well as the core curriculum that is presented and taught to our team members here in Ottawa through the University of Kansas Public Management Center. And with that, I would like to acknowledge John and also to acknowledge Chad for their work. And so if you would both please stand and be recognized for being highlighted as some of our emerging leaders within our organization and who we'll look to as we continue to grow and evolve as an organization and in our constant improvement process and the citizens that we serve each and every day. So I want to thank you for your commitment, as well as to the group and the individuals that they lead within their respective work groups, and also for their supervisors for supporting and assisting them in this evolution. So thank you, and I look forward to working with you into the future as you proceed forward in your careers. And do you have anything you'd like to say? No? Yeah?
Thank you for letting us have the opportunity. It's been helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, same. I'll piggyback on that. Very much thank you for the city of allowing, $20 to go to furthering us continuing education. But it's a very good class, and I encourage other city workers here and anyone who take this class. I wouldn't call it a class, more of a program, and it's really beneficial. It's probably one of the better classes I've ever taken, even counting all the college classes. It's very personal growth.
Before you leave, we want to get a picture here, but I want to read just a little bit about what you guys have accomplished here. Chad, first of all, you've been dedicated Parks and Cemeteries Division teammate since he began his tenure in 2016. Chad has demonstrated commitment to professional growth and excellence throughout his time with us. Notably, he has obtained an arborist certification through the Kansas Arborist Association, KAA, and completed the Kansas Local Technical Assistance Program, the Kansas LTAP Rhodes Scholar Level 1 program. So I appreciate that very much. And John, looks like you've got a very good history too. Back in November 21, you took a new challenge by transferring to the power plant, where he excelled as an electric plant operator 1. His commitment to professional growth and service continued as he recently completed the KU Public Management Center's Emerging Leaders Academy program this last June. John's positive attitude and continuous improvement mindset has greatly benefited our community and our organization. His successful completion of the Emerging Leaders Academy is a testament to his potential for future leadership roles and his unwavering dedication to serving the citizens of Ottawa. And I've always said, anytime we can enhance and improve the education of any of our employees, that's a good thing. I look at our balance sheet, and we can't put the employee value on the balance sheet anywhere. If we did, there'd be millions and millions, I know. But we know it's the value is there regardless, and we do value both of you, what you've dedicated time to do this. This wasn't easy. I'm sure they don't hand these things out just for Lily, but I appreciate you put the dedication into it and completed the project, and excellent job. So let's get a picture down here. Yep. Brian, you want to go too?
I just write the report.
Let's give him a hand. All right, next we have the consent agenda. We've got the minutes from the July 10th, 2024 City Commission meeting, the June 2024 financial report. Do we have an approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. That motion carries. Go on to the declaration at this time. I'd like to give the commissioners a chance to declare any conflict or communication they've had that might influence their ability to consider today's issues impartially. And hearing that, we'll go on to unfinished business. Franklin County Emergency Communication Report. And Sarah Peffley is here, I understand, right? Sarah, you want to come forward?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I'm here to present our stats for the first half of the year. We handle emergency communications for all of Franklin County. That's 3 law enforcement agencies, 9 fire departments, Franklin County EMS, and Franklin County Emergency Management. So far this year, we have taken 4,875 phone calls for 911s, 23,000 administrative calls, and only 62 texts to 911s. Comparing that to the first half of last year, we're down about 2,000 calls roughly overall for 911s, and a little bit more for our admin calls. All those calls we receive have to meet a national standard. I'm pleased to say that we are on our 911 calls. We are 99% in answering our calls in less than 10 seconds. With our CAD calls that we receive, all of our phone calls generate CAD calls, and those CAD calls go out to our responders to respond to them, whether it's law enforcement, fire, or EMS. This year so far, from January to June, the Ottawa Police Department has received 7,413 CAD calls, and the Ottawa Fire Department has received 1,160 phone calls, or CAD calls. Compare that to the first half of last year, the Ottawa Police Department received 10,000 CAD calls, and the Ottawa Fire Department received 968 CAD calls, where they responded to calls for service. So again, we are down just a little bit from what we were last year. Dispatchers talk on the radio. This is our push to talk time. This is how much dispatch has communicated to field units. And it roughly, for the first half of the year, it's 165 hours that we have talked on the radio. Average talk time is 3.99 seconds. Lastly, our staff. We have 12 total staff in the center. That includes 2 management and 10 working on the floor. Currently, we have 9 working on the floor, with one of those being in training. We are short 1 member to be a full staff. Our hours are 12-hour increments, 6 to 6, morning and night, and if we are fully staffed, then we have someone in there from 9 to 9 during the week. And that's everything I have. Janet's going to talk about the budget.
Okay. Hi, Janet.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
I know that you guys reviewed the budget last week, and I would definitely accept any questions that you have in regards to the budget that we submitted to you guys. As you discussed on your meeting last week, really the only increases to that budget from last year are the staffing numbers for the salary increases. As you mentioned earlier, Mayor Skidmore, we cannot put our employees on a balance sheet. They're critical to good operations, and Sarah, as she said, is only short one staff, so her staff has been with her for quite a while now, and we feel like they're a really good team, and we need to continue to give them increases to recognize them for that. So that's the only increase. One thing that I told Melanie that I had hoped to present to you today is not a finalized number, but as we have agreed with you guys that we would rebate you back the portion of unspent funds. I have received the preliminary report from our audit from last year, and it will be finalized in a couple weeks, and I'll be able to submit that check to you guys once it's finalized. But we anticipate that rebate check for this year will be $70,062.50 from those funds. So happy to rebate that back to you guys. And I will answer any questions that you have regarding the budget if you do have any.
We did good. Yeah, I know that I made some noise last week about the double taxation of Ottawa citizens, and I recognize this is something that commissioners will have to meet with the other commissioners to make a decision. Our agreement we have right now, I believe, is about 10 years old, and it's probably time to update some things on there anyway. So we'll be doing that the next 6 months, meeting with them and talking over some plans and progress and ideas and a formula and all that goes with it between that. So I do want to thank you for your dedication and service. I know I hear in Kansas City, there's been issues up there where the response time goes on for minutes, and I appreciate the fact that we're very quick here, so that's recognized. I wish people had an opportunity to go visit your situation, see what stress the job entails, and I think we all have greater appreciation, myself included. I should come see there sometime. I think I plan to do that soon, but just to see what goes on in a typical day for you, so I recognize that. I do have just a quick question. CAD call, the CAD, does that stand for?
Computer-aided dispatch system.
Okay, all right. And what's an example of administration call? I'll
It's-
come to the microphone. Thank you.
The administration's call is just a call that's not received on 911. So it comes in on 242, 1700, 3800, one of those lines.
Okay.
So it's not a 911 call.
Okay. But you do have quite a few of those, it looks like, comparatively speaking. So, which
Yes.
I guess that's treated differently, I assume, as far as your recording goes.
No, the recordings are the same.
Same. Okay.
Yeah. And even though it comes in on an admin line, it could be a 911 call.
Okay.
Typically.
It could. So
Yes.
you'll be able to transfer it or able to react that way to that particular
Yes.
situation then. So good. Okay. All right. Anybody have any other questions up here?
And Sarah, this may be for you. This may also be for police chief. On the CAD entries, we're down 26% this year, which probably is a good thing. Do you think, is that improved communication per message, or do you think overall that's just kind of a drop in necessary communication in that?
Honestly, it's whatever the customer needs. And
Yeah.
if the customer doesn't need anything, they're not going to call us. I can't go out and drum up business.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Nor do we want you to.
No, yeah. Well, no, I just think that's a great thing, so I
yes.
just wanted to highlight that. Thank you.
Very good. Any more? Oh, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Sarah, thank you for your report, I appreciate it. I appreciate, again, I wanna highlight that your team is doing an excellent job about making those, answering those calls in like a really speedy manner. I can't find my phone in 10 seconds, let alone try and answer it oftentimes within 10 seconds, so thank you, and thank you to your staff for doing such a great job. You know, I don't know how many people who are listening to this or are sitting up here with me have made a 911 call, but when you make that call, you want someone to answer and you need help. Generally, you're not just calling just to check to see what the weather's going to be like today. You may get that call. I'm sorry if you do.
We have.
But that's not what 911 is for. So if you make that call and you're calling to dispatch, I appreciate the fact that your staff is there to answer and answer very, very quickly. So thank them.
Thank you.
Several years ago, and I'm glad that Mayor Skidmore brought this up, several years ago, we actually did do a tour of the dispatch center. And I wonder if that might be something that maybe could be set up for the entire city commission so that we could again see kind of how things are working. And if you've not been inside, it would be a good opportunity just for us to kind of put eyes on what happens
Sure.
in the dispatch center. So possibly that's something that we could set up. in collaboration. I do have just a quick question about line 303, and it's so small, but it's kind of stood out to me, and that's for office equipment. It appears in the last 3 years you've spent an average of like $630 on office equipment, yet you're asking for an increase of $200 to $1,300 in office equipment. And so I'm just wondering, what's the increase for?
We're looking to replace some chairs.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. That was my question. So thank you.
Any other questions anybody have? All right, good report. Thank you for both being here, and again, thank you for your service to our county and our community. So, thank you both.
Thank you.
Thanks. We will move on to item, let's see, we have new business. We have an interview for City Planning Commission with Jack Maxwell. And Jack, come on up to the podium. You're a well-known name in town, so I don't know if you need a whole lot of an introduction, but we all know who you are, Jack, and thank you for your past service on this commission. We'll just have a few questions to ask you and proceed with what we normally would do. We could discuss it after the meeting's over, and then go from there. We got 2 openings, looks like, and you're outside the city limits within 3 miles, and so you qualify for that particular position that we need. So let's start with, just my question would be this, is why do you want to serve on the Planning Commission?
Well, as you know, I served before and actually served a long time, and I think I may have actually served past the expiration date of my term, but there was not another candidate, so I continued on until there was another candidate. So I was enjoying myself and enjoying the contribution and liked the activity and liked what we did and where I thought we were going. And it was just time to step away because that's the way the rules work. And they should. That's the way it should be. So I've been gone for a while, but I've not lost my interest in what I was doing before. Loved the community. We moved here in the 1970s. Been here a long time, raised my kids here. Worked here, worked for Ottawa University for almost 40 years. Retired there, but I've been a fixture in the community for a long time. School board member for many years. So I like to contribute. I like to give. I like to do these kinds of things. I like to be part of things that are moving forward. And the Planning Commission is a piece of that moving forward. And I felt like when I was finishing my previous term, I felt like we were really starting to focus more on looking forward. And I like that. It's energizing to be a part of looking forward in this community. And the reality is, I mean, I'm a life scientist by training, but then I spent my career, most of it in information technology. But you're either moving forward or you're moving backward. And that's how it is. And I really like to be a part of the moving forward piece. And I think it's a community that's in a special place geographically. It has special opportunities to grow in some really positive ways, and I like to be a part of that. I enjoy the challenge of that kind of problem solving. So I'm ready to go at it again if that's what the powers that be would decide. So I'm interested and willing to do that again.
Okay, very good. We'll go to Commissioner Clayton for the next question.
You kind of already answered a few of these. But what kind of specific skills, qualifications, experience can you offer this role?
Well, I'll depart a little bit from just talking about the background and talk about who I am. I'm very analytical. I'm a cross your T, dot your I kind of guy. And so when problems came in front of the Planning Commission, it's just a natural part of me to dig into the data, if there's data, to dig into the background. And I also like to look at consequences. Again, in the information technology world, if you're going to implement something, you have to look at long-term consequences of that technology to the best you can do that. And that's the way I approach problems. So being a part of the Planning Commission is like being a part of your commission. Everybody's different and they bring some different skill sets to the table. That's the skill set I bring. I'm very analytical. I'm not very emotional, which some people would say is a good thing, and some would say is not such a good thing. But I don't get caught up in rhetoric and back and forth and you said kind of stuff. I'm pretty much a let's stick to the issue and move us forward. So that's sort of a summary, I guess.
Thank you. Very good. Commissioner Kaler.
Jack, thank you for being here. I always appreciate whenever we have conversations. I never have to worry about you getting emotional. Absolutely, you get to. It's always good. It's like Jack's got it all together. Whenever you approach it, I'm like, we're gonna have a great conversation. So thank you. And I know that you'll bring that to the Planning Commission. I'm gonna go off script here, commissioners, just so you know. And Jack, I wonder if you might want to tell me about another community that you may have watched and how they have grown, or another community that you've watched that maybe didn't manage their growth so well. You don't necessarily have to name them, but tell me about how you can bring that knowledge to better our community.
I don't know that I have a deep understanding of other communities, but what I still see happening is really just lack of vision, for one thing. And that's actually your job, I think, in this whole thing, is to create a vision. The Planning Commission should begin to fill in the pieces, should help in that process of filling in the pieces to meet that vision. I really believe that cities who fail or stumble have never articulated their vision. The people who live there don't understand where they want to go. We just heard a mention of downtown. Great. Who in Ottawa probably doesn't think that it would be good to vitalize or revitalize the downtown? But it's important to have that in front. If it's a priority, then you say it and you re-say it and you keep saying it and you keep doing something about it or attempting to do something about it. So I think communities that fail, number one, don't have the vision. But secondly, they also don't plan for success in the event that they do achieve it. For example, a community up the road that really has very little infrastructure, public utility infrastructure, technical infrastructure, and they're gonna struggle. They do struggle because that's a gap, a big gap, if you're gonna grow as a community. So it's having that kind of a comprehensive understanding, I think, of what the community needs to look like. So frankly, those who have it succeed, and those who don't.
Thank you, Jack.
Very good. Let's go to Commissioner Crowley.
Good morning, Jack. How are you?
Good morning.
Good, good. Hey, what do you perceive to be the biggest need or concern regarding the Planning Commission?
I would tell you honestly that since I left, I stepped away, and so I don't know how that group has really changed. Leadership has changed. I mean, from the city standpoint, Lucas is new. I didn't work with him before. So it's a whole new thing. I know a couple of the current members, the Planning Commission members, but not all of them. So most all of that's new. So I would hesitate to jump in and say, here's what should be different or here's what's good, because I would be speaking out of ignorance, and I don't want to do that. But I am good at adapting, both to people and circumstances, and don't lack confidence that I can probably fit into where the Planning Commission has evolved to since the time that I was there before. And of course, their responsibilities are basically the same. It's just how they get there that might have changed.
Thank you, Jack.
Very good. Pro Tem Allen.
You have kind of answered this a little bit already, but and I know you had mentioned that you're not necessarily emotional, but would you be willing to set aside any personal feelings for or against any type of business or proposal if an applicant has complied with all the applicable laws and regulations?
Yeah, I think I'm generally capable of just examining the issue at hand, not the person. Some of you know, and this is sort of a story, but we had an issue with a community in town, and there was a request to build certain kinds of homes there. And I had a daughter who lived in that community already. I had a son who was one of the people who wanted to change that community. So I was on the planning commission at the time that came in front of us. And so however we voted, it was going to be one of my children that was going to be viewed as the winner and one as the loser. They both knew that up front. The dad makes decisions that he thinks are best for everybody. So neither of them were at all concerned about what I might think or decide. So I'd say, you know, no one should ever say, I would never do, or I will always do. Those are two words that don't belong anywhere. But I'd say, generally speaking, I'm pretty much able to set aside personal issues.
Thank you.
Very good. Jack, let's get one more question myself. I know you mentioned in your comments about a cog in the wheel. Without getting into too specifics, can you kind of tell us a little bit behind that comment and what your thinking is generally?
Well, I guess my thinking is that you really don't make significant progress in a community unless it's possible to engage more broadly. So the Planning Commission is a group of individuals, but to truly make progress, it involves engaging other people, other groups in the community, drawing them in, whether it's the university or whether it's some other kind of group that needs to be a part of that growth and has input. They may even have expertise that you don't have. So it's going beyond the parameters of just kind of who you are and reaching out. Again, we're not a community of 300,000 people. We have the opportunity to reach out, and we should do that. The best way to move forward is when people are engaged and they're understanding what you're doing and they're understanding what you want to do. So I like that idea. I would tell you that when I was on the Planning Commission before, I thought we spent very little time with the commission, almost none, in fact. So we really didn't interface very much with other groups. And I always felt kind of isolated in that respect, that some of our work might have been isolated because we didn't spread the gospel, so to speak, or we didn't get to listen to the gospel, however you want to view that. So I would see that as a gap that, and maybe that's changed. It might have changed, and I just don't know it. But I think it's really, really important that we recognize that there's a synergy to be gained from communication.
Good comments there. Anyone have any other questions they want to ask of Jack? I do like your comments. I've often believed that measured growth is the best growth. We've seen some cities experience exponential, and they can't handle with the roads, the infrastructure, the schools, the stoplights, everything involved. And is that too fast of a growth? We do need some. We've been kind of stagnant for a long time, and so hopefully we can see some measured growth in the future.
Well,
but
I think it's uniquely American, maybe, that we put such a high value on growth that we're interested in having it no matter what the cost. And then when we get the cost, we're saying, oops. It's hard to say no sometimes to things that look good. But if you're not prepared for the consequences of those good things, there may be a more deadly price to pay for that.
Very good.
Downstream.
I agree. Good point. All right. We'll take this under advisement, Jack, and talk about it later in the meeting, and we'll get back with you on it.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Next, we have a video. Let's see, our IT department's been busy at it. Our crack IT department, right? Been busy at it putting this together, so I'm anxious to see what we got for us today. So, Matt, Paul, take it over.
You'll forgive me if I'm a little rusty. I think it's been about 18 years since I've been before the commission.
Did you bring a puppet?
I did not. But he's still around, so yeah, he's still around. Good morning, commissioners and mayor. I'd like to start out by stating that we understand the commission has a desire to better tell our story. We've heard that a number of times, and we've tried to be receptive to that vision. The IT department has been actively focusing on a 7-step strategy to more effectively tell our story. One of those ways that we came up with is this promotional video project. Part of their strategy was the creation of approximately a 60-second video that is about Ottawa. The video was a planned initiative aligned with the city's strategic communication goals and has been in the work for 4 weeks now. The project overview, we wanted the video to highlight certain aspects of Ottawa that residents and those living outside of Ottawa might find appealing. This video was finished up last Tuesday, and part of our strategy moving forward was to show the commission a premiere, so to speak, and you could see it before it gets posted on social media later this morning. So without anything else, we'll show the video now.
Welcome to Ottawa, Kansas, where history meets charm and community thrives. Nestled along the banks of the Marais-des-Cygnes River and located a short distance from many Kansas metropolitan areas, Ottawa offers a blend of small-town warmth and modern convenience. Discover our vibrant downtown, where local shops, eateries, and cultural landmarks create a tapestry of experiences. Explore our rich history, bike along our trails, or take a stroll through one of our many parks located throughout the city. There are recreational activities for all ages in Ottawa. Whether you're here for a day or a lifetime, Ottawa welcomes you with open arms. Come experience the spirit of community in Ottawa, Kansas. Plan your visit today and discover why Ottawa is a place to call home. Visit us online at www.ottawaks.gov and come enjoy Ottawa.
So like I said, this was just step one of a strategy that we kind of came up with. The idea going forward for this video is pushing it out on all our social media channels, pushing it out on our channel, our TV channel, as well as doing paid promotion, sending this out through Facebook targeting, whether that be Kansas communities surrounding us or other states as well, depending on what we decide going forward. And I also wanted to highlight that at the end, there's a call to action. It says, visit us at www.ottawaks.gov. So on our webpage, we've also included the Enjoy Ottawa button that's been up there for a couple weeks now. Once that button is clicked, that we kind of repurposed our helpful links page into this page. This page then takes a person who's seen this video to show them what we have to offer here in town. Goes to links to different pages, different entities like Franklin County Development, Main Street, news, history, radio, all that stuff. So I just wanted to show the video to you guys to kind of get your feedback, I guess, and help us in going forward. I just wanted to say that the IT department's commitment to continuously improve the city's communication efforts and exploring new ways to engage with the community is ongoing. And we are, I don't know if you guys have seen also that we're also doing on the street interviews. Some of those have been showing up online. Tiffany, she's more approachable, so we've had her do the questions.
Good thinking.
Using your
So
resources
she's been,
wisely.
yes.
Good job.
So she knows the community. We've been using her to ask the questions, although the voice is different in the videos. She is the one that helps with that. So I didn't want to go without recognizing her help with that as well. And then we also have videos coming up showcasing our parks and our amenities in these parks that we plan on doing going forward from there. So with that, I'll stand for any questions or anything, but other than that, that's all I've got today.
Any questions anybody have?
I think that looks great. Have we looked at reaching out to like Kansas Tourism or any kind of groups like that to potentially get it in their hands to share as well?
Yeah, I mean, everything's on the table. Yeah. So right now, we just wanted to showcase the video, and going forward, like I said, we've got plans going forward from there. We wanted to kind of show the video, see how it does, and then get the feedback and see what we do next with it. So that's the idea. Thanks.
Matt, great video. You mentioned there's 7 steps per se. Can you give us some of the ideas of some of those other ones
I wasn't
thinking about?
I wasn't really prepared today for that. We can come back. We can come back and present those to you guys. I'm not saying we're not willing to do that. We'd be more than happy to showcase that. But at this time, we just kind of wanted to show the video and get your guys' feedback on that for now.
Well, I apologize for the mayor making you guys work overtime the last couple weeks because he's, not a big fan of the marketing thing, and we were. You guys did a great job on this video.
Thank you.
These are the kind of things that I think, not speaking for their commissioners, but I think I can, that we're looking forward to tell our story, as you said. Because we have a great community, we have a great downtown, we have great amenities. And without that video or the video like that getting out there, we have no way to let folks know, hey, come here, come
Sure.
stay here, come live here.
Sure.
Because there are folks like us that have, been here our whole lives and grew up, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's a great community.
Right.
I love living here, and I will spend the rest of my life here, and I want other people to enjoy the same things that I've enjoyed for my life, so with theirs too. So you guys did a great job, and it's going to make it difficult to have that discussion for the marketing position.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for saying that. And yeah, we'll keep you guys posted as we move forward. So.
Appreciate that.
And I agree. I think the video is great, and I always think it's really nice when we can show off some of the nice things that we have. So that was nicely put together. So thank you guys for your hard work on that.
Matt, in all the years that I've worked with you, you have never disappointed.
Oh, thank you.
You have, and if those who know Matt know he has a great sense of humor, but he works incredibly hard.
Thank you.
And so thank you for putting that together. And I know that you and the entire team, the IT department, worked really hard on putting that, and it looks great.
Thank you.
I agree with Commissioner Crowley. I'm really excited to hear about your 7-step program. I think that the IT department is a critical piece of the success of our community, kind of to piggyback on what Jack was saying earlier. And I appreciate all that you do. I think that I just can't wait to see steps 2 through 7 come to life. And so this is a really great start. So thank you for that video.
Sure, thank you. And I also want to thank Manager Silcott, because he kind of pushed me to get my drone pilot license so I can now go out and do all these other shots as well.
I'm sorry you had to get that.
No, that's all right. That's all right.
Yeah,
I do want to reiterate that as well. Thanks on that. And I want to say all the after hours, looking at some of your shots and kind of the B-reel I'm sure you have.
Yeah.
How much is outside of working hours? It's events in the community that are in the evening, parades, so many things that you're at, car show that you're recording, that you're doing stuff, and so that doesn't go unnoticed. That you're outside, traditional working hours, capturing that for us as well.
Yeah. So thank you.
I want to add to that how creative you guys are, and actually award-winning IT department. We don't want to forget the awards you guys have won over the past years as well. And I do want to thank you, and many people don't know this, but last week of June, I was contacted by a cable news company in Canada, the largest cable news in all of Canada, to do a story on July 1, which is Canada Day. And they wanted a story from Ottawa for their Ottawa, Ontario, and if we did any kind of celebrations of any kind. I said, well, we didn't, but we'd sure glad to put something together for you. So Matt and his team and Paul put together a video, and they were going to interview me, and we were going to talk about Ottawa, and they canceled our feed, and so we didn't get to it this year. Maybe next year we'll do it. But anyway, I thought that'd been a great publicity stunt for all of Canada to witness. But maybe next year we'll try.
They still reach out to us through Facebook and Twitter accidentally.
And we appreciate your comical responses. Keep that up.
No problem. Well,
thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Good job.
And I've asked Paul if he can. I don't know if he's capable at this point with the platform intersecting, but we would play the brief. It's like 40 seconds long of the O Canada video.
Oh, sure.
And I'm sorry, I forgot to say A. Canada A.
Oh, yeah, don't forget that part.
You could always put it in your comments by city manager, Paul, so you would have a few minutes if you'd like.
That's great. Well, thanks. And I'm just thinking too, got my high school reunion for 50 years coming up in October, and so that'd be a great video to show that people coming to town that haven't been here for 50 years to see the progress of our community. So I'll get with you on that. We'll figure a way to show that to them. So thanks for that, guys. Good job. We'll go to active project updates. We have review of current project status and updates for the last 30 days. Manager Silcott.
Thank you, Mayor and Commission. Just want to hit some highlights here and offer the opportunity to ask either myself or some of our teammates who are the actual resident experts in the room any questions related to the projects that we have before us here. The first slide will be what's been concluded and what we have currently oncoming. And the first one will be, oh, sorry. Oh, all right. So the only real items of note right now is the HVAC and the boiler are still queued in anticipation for moving forward, as is the technology upgrade for the commission chambers here, so that the layout design and the technology, which is it's 20 years old plus actually. So we will be having that before you here very, very shortly. The next item in the agenda packet is the public improvements for the 2022A, and that's part of the reason why our HVAC and the OMA boiler hasn't yet been presented as with our priorities and what we have and the timelines with the use of funds. It's important, non-urgent, and so our focus has gone to the important urgent tasks, which is completing and getting through the threshold for the programming that contains ARPA funds, as there's a window for that utilization. Mulberry and Dundee is substantially complete, so we'll be processing some final invoices, but otherwise that should be complete, and in fact processed change order requests that reduce the total project cost by $712 or so to essentially reflect the estimate versus the actual material and quantities used. So that's good, because that frees up some additional balance in our stormwater fund for use elsewhere. We'll have the K68 management plan, which is completed and posted online. We will eventually have a website for this corridor and other corridor plans that we have in place. We'll have this item presented at our next city commission meeting with KDOT and the contract engineers for the state present to answer any additional questions that you might have on that. The splash pad is, again, a hit, and all eyes of the community have been on that, and that is completed now. We should, again, be finalizing all of the payment processing moving forward. Our playground equipment is being mobilized. That is an in-house project that we're doing. We received state funding assistance with that for 50% of the recycled tires through KDHE's recycled tire program. And so our operations manager for Public Works, DJ, is currently in the process of mobilizing that, and we may be utilizing a combination of staff and community volunteers to complete that that construction for that project. And then the water tower remains ongoing, and as we have said, we're looking to continue with much work that's occurring that the public won't be able to really tell, because it's stuff on the inside and then pumps at the facility, at the treatment facility, and all of the steps that go in between that. So there's active, important work going on. It's just there's not the physical manifestation of that work like you see when there's a tower being constructed. So we'll be continuing to report that going forward. And to that end, our generator standby for our raw water pump is also about 90% complete. So we'll have additional work to implement with respect to our switch gear and whatnot to integrate that into our systems and processes. Our base grant, as you know, is complete, although from an administrative standpoint, it's still outstanding because there's a lengthy and cumbersome reimbursement process. So at this time, we'll show it still as being ongoing until we receive that reimbursement payments back. So we'll continue to just keep you apprised of where that's at. And then to make everyone aware on our AMI real-time electric metering, as you know, that's still underway, and we're anticipating delivery again after the first of the year, even though they did give us, as retired director Riney had indicated, kind of a tease by sending us an order that just wasn't our order or the right order. So we will be also rolling out the plan moving forward once we get nearer to that time, so that we'll be able to communicate with our utility customers and the community at large the phasing and how we will go about that, so that they'll be made aware of what's going to happen. And kudos to our electric utility team, because they've worked to integrate the technology and the hardware. And I know Director Landis and her team for utility billing with Bob and everyone, so that we're able to take the meters that aren't online and those that we are putting online with the real-time technology, so that they'll be able to shake hands, and regardless of what type of meter you have, it'll be reflected on the map. So when you call Doppler and report that outage, they'll be able to shake hands for that. So we're moving forward with that as well. That is the summation of our active projects and those that we have queued on the horizon. So if you have any questions for myself or our technical team, who are the experts, we stand ready to.
Okay. Any questions anybody have?
City Manager Silcott, back to the commission chambers renovation. I know we've discussed, and things may have changed initially, that there would be a removal of this wall to accommodate more people if necessary, an upgrade on IT and camera systems, and then a new dais to accommodate and hopefully provoke more conversation amongst the commission. Is that kind of along the lines of what we're still anticipating?
I won't commit to the wall portion.
Okay.
That is a significant cost increase that could potentially exceed the budget. And at the staff level, we've also reviewed how best to structure that, as far as making certain that we're maximizing the use of funds, whether it's construction manager at risk or the traditional design bid build process. So the main thing is that we'll be looking at redirecting the layout so that not only does it promote more active communication and engagement from the members on the bench, but also that it's more presentable in a streaming format, so that the viewing audience at home, which is where a majority of folks actually get a lot of their updates from what's happening here at the city, and also is beneficial in that when we're assisting citizens in information gathering and there's a discussion at the commission, we're able to go directly out to the streaming platform and literally direct them to the minute and the second that discussion is underway. So it's something that we want to make sure is taking into account not just our physical space here, but also how our neighbors are actually processing information and news here at the city today and into the future.
So it sounds to me like there'd be quite a bit of construction. Has staff had internal conversations about what we will be doing during that time frame about how we proceed with meetings?
Yes, and Paul won't let me play the safety dance to kick off each commission meeting, but we are looking at some alternate choices, including utilizing the study room if necessary, or we've got a couple of different options, including even if necessary for large meetings, the OMA or whatnot in the interim. But we expect a relatively quick turnaround. It'll just, again, in fact, I have one of our drafts that I need to get turned around this week to Paul so we can get moving on that.
And the reason I'm kind of asking these questions is commissioners, I don't know if it's it's just an idea. Years before I became a commissioner, I know some of you folks had remote meetings. I know one of them I saw on YouTube was at Kine Bakery. And this might be a good time for us to maybe do something like that, where we could do a remote meeting or two, that we could, be out amongst our neighbors and our friends, and allow them to be more, as Matt said, he was nervous to come up this morning, make them more accommodating to come up and have some conversations with you instead of having to come here. So just food for thought, if we get to that point and we could do that, I'd be certainly interested in doing something like that.
That's an excellent idea.
Good point.
Commissioner Crowley, I'm so glad that you brought up a couple different points there. Number one, I've been deeply concerned about this structure in which that we utilize, because there's not one study that I can read that says this is the way to foster good conversation by us not being able to see each other, by us not being able to have conversations with each other. I can't see what Commissioner Crowley is doing. I can't really see what either of the people on either side of me are doing. And so it doesn't foster good communication. And I think that that's been a struggle for us since we actually moved and made this our room permanently. I think it's been a huge struggle for us. And I think it's, unfortunately, it's not led to growth within our commission, I don't believe. And so I certainly hope that we as commissioners are a part of that conversation instead of having the design just brought to us and said, here's your design. I hope that we are part of the conversation about, we're the ones sitting up here. I mean, I've sat up here for 13 years
and that's always been the intent as we look at rolling it out, because particularly as we look at if we go forward with a construction manager at risk or something like that, which is in the vein of a design build process, as opposed to the traditional design bid build process, because that's where we set that criteria and those parameters as far as what's the the critical point that we're trying to achieve through this project that it's essentially the foundation from which everything else is built around, and it's the dais, and then secondary to the physical layout of the bench would be our technology aspect.
Very good. Thank you. I think
Which may mean that we may be facing east or west or north. I mean,
absolutely.
Lots of options here.
I also, on my comments, I love that Commissioner Crowley brought up the kind of taking it to people. I think that it says a whole lot when we say we're ready to come to your neighborhood and when your neck of the woods. We don't expect you to come to our neck of the woods. I love that we're having National Night Out coming up soon, and that's exactly what it means. It says, let us open, let us stand in your front yard and talk to you. Let us sit down in a lawn chair and have a conversation with you. We don't expect you to come to our meeting. You're a citizen and we should come to you. And so I think that that could be of great benefit to do. I'd love to see us have a city commission meeting at the high school for some of the government classes. I would love to see at OU. I would love to see other things where when our commission gets out and is among everyone that we are representing. So thank you for that update.
Good. Good job. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Not on the commission chamber, on the park playground equipment. Do we have plans are we trying to purple wave the existing equipment, donate it? I know there's been a lot of questions on.
Right, and we are not, due to the fact that the age and once it's taken down, it essentially we're pulling it offline, even though it's grandfathered due to its age. Once it's pulled down, it essentially becomes a piece of unsafe or fails to meet current safety standards for new design and new installation. So the liability in both the management and our Parks and Rec industries is that we not do that, so that we're not passing along a potential risk to someone that may unknowingly be purchasing or securing something that they're not fully aware of the hazards that might be there, particularly if it's not assembled properly.
Thank you.
Because any work that we do, we have a number of certified safety playground inspectors on our team here, and so with that, it's annual. It's a significant time to train in the coursework for the exam and then the continuing ed. So it's something that's a little more than just a product of liability claims in the industry. It's actually some common sense stuff, so that we make sure that we are actually and actively inspecting and logging those inspections in accordance with not only best practices but minimum requirements for limiting liability to the organization.
Thank you. And then on the for our issue 2022A, the Law Enforcement Center flood mitigation improvements, with that being complete and being $350,000 under budget, what happens to those funds? You know, looking, that's about 14% of the total debt. Where do those? I guess, yeah.
Where do they
what
go?
Happens to those funds?
Go ahead, Director Landis.
So there's still several projects left to be even bid at this point. We don't know that our original estimates will even meet what the designed or bid estimates will be. So we're looking at it as a whole, the total dollars that are available. And then in addition to, we've been able to coordinate even the cost of the air handler for the OMA, to dovetail that with the boiler improvement project. So there's a lot yet to be done with the funds in that total bond issue. I wouldn't say that we're anywhere near knowing exactly where we're going to land.
Yeah, so
yet.
it stays in those
Absolutely.
same project pillars, basically.
Yes.
Thank you.
It stays within the same fund that we track it in, because from the bond issue standpoint, our projects were outlined in the original bond transcripts as to what can and can't be completed with those funds. And so it's all in one fund, but we need to stick to the intent of the project originally. But there's still quite a few large items to be accomplished.
And those projects for the 2022A issuance are on in your packet for, I believe it's the second page of this agenda item.
One more thing on the playground equipment I want to bring up. We've had several people in the community reach out to me. The bridge at that on that one that we've torn down was dedicated to Bert and Jen Anderson's son that passed away a long time ago. And there was a plaque on there. And I reached out to them. I've known Bert for a long time and met his wife Janet at K-State. And wonderful couple, live in El Dorado. But anyway, we're going to get that plaque to them.
Yes, and our operations manager, DJ Welsh, has been on top of that from the start, and so he's in possession of that.
That's great. And they happened to be in town just a month ago and drove by to see it one more time before. They didn't know it was going to be replaced, but it was good timing for them. But we'll get that plaque to them, and it's a memorable thing for them for their loss of their child that we're sorry to hear. Thank you, Brian. Okay, now the funnest part. Is it funnest a word? The most funnest part. Yes, will be the final review for the 2025 operating budget, and Director Landis. It's the most wonderful time of the year, right? Except for Christmas.
It is for me. I don't know about for everyone else. But Thank you. So this is really the one of 3 items that are on your agenda, but they're all interrelated and intermingled here. So part of our discussion in just our final review will touch on some of the other items, the other 2 items as well. To revisit the timeline that we've looked at for the past couple of meetings, just as a reminder, this is the final time for us to make a decision as to what whether or not we intend to exceed the R&R, the revenue neutral rate, and also to set our public hearing date. There's a deadline of July 20th in order for us to notify the county, and I have a clip of that in the PowerPoint and it was also included in your packet, the form that we have to submit after today's meeting. And that's just your intent. For exceeding the mill rate, it does not say exactly what your ending mill rate has to be. But we'll get into that. And then, of course, holding our public hearing. And I apologize, that says September 6th, but we're actually recommending September 4th, which is the Wednesday of that week. And both for the public hearing, budget adoption, and the capital improvement adoption. Our discussion topics today are what I just stated to you, and I think the important part of the rest of the discussion is that we review why we did what we did when we put this budget together and what those goals were during budget preparation. And really our number one goal was to achieve the commission's strategic objective of the responsible fiscal management through a budget with a stable mill rate. And we've talked about that before in some of our other budget presentations, but we've also talked about it during your goal setting sessions. And then also to maintain our current level of city services, and then to prepare for those quality of life initiatives that we anticipate will come out of our visioning process, which will occur later this year. I just put a slide in here for each one of the funds that has an impact on the overall mill rate. So this is the library fund. You heard from the library at our last meeting discussing the needs for their budget and their approved budget by their board. Just a couple of notes in here. The city acts as a conduit for the ad valorem taxes and the motor vehicle taxes that are distributed from the county. There is a Kansas statute as well as our city charter ordinance that determines how much they can actually levy, and as far as a mill rate goes. And other than that, I have another table that I can show you the impact of their proposed estimated tax rate here in a second. The community partners. This is a table that you've seen before, but our proposed budget that we've presented to you includes level funding for the existing community partner funding. We did not include any new funding for the 2 new requests that we received. And no additional increases for those new requests that were received from currently funded community partners. Our debt service fund is included. As a reminder, we talked about how the property tax or the ad valorem taxes supports only 16.5% of our total debt. That's our total debt payments for the year, as well as our total debt overall. And so you'll see that if you look across that yellow line there, you'll see at the top that this is a proposed mill rate reduction for this particular fund, because we did pay off two of our debt issuances matured that had an ad valorem impact. So there's a slight reduction there. And you'll see that we were able to build that into our auditorium budget on this slide, because as we've talked about, and you've heard from our OMA director, and then our previous discussion of the challenges that we've been met with for just the maintenance of the building and the repair of the facilities and the equipment repair inside the building, in order to keep it at the expected type of venue and facility that we have promoted and people have come to love. And our biggest challenge here is not just our current budget, but also our declining fund balance over the next couple of years. We did mention to you in a previous discussion that our charter ordinance does allow us for up to 2 mills for operations and an additional 1 mill for capital improvements. But as you can see at the top, and I don't believe that we've ever gone over this mill rate, that that we're only proposing a 1.772 mill rate for the auditorium. On the general fund, or for the general fund, I listed here some of the budget highlights that we've discussed. It was also in your packet memo. I think these are important because when we talk about budget, I think everybody sees the 1,000 or more line items that might be in the budget, and we have reviewed each and every one of those line items. But more importantly, we really tried to put together a budget that targeted our goals that we talked about at the beginning, but then also these are some of the things that you would realize from the budget that's being proposed. So our community attraction programming, the community visioning process, and the eventual quality of life project initiatives, the level funding for our community partners, improvement project funding transfers, so an additional transfer or an increased transfer to support the airport taxiway reconstruction, increased transfer for street maintenance. That was the redirection of the highway connecting links revenue for the general fund that's would be sent to the special highway fund, and then additional dollars for sidewalk maintenance being transferred to that capital improvement fund. Something I didn't have listed on here is that additional transfer for support of the OMA in 2024 in order to keep the fund balance at a good level. In addition, included in those transfers was $60,000 that we had originally set aside in the 2023 budget, and we discussed it as being used for the planning for a future aquatic center. And because that wasn't spent, it rolled over as a beginning fund balance. And so, because we know that we have this visioning process coming, and we know that we're going to have some project kickoff that we're going to need to do in the future, it's being proposed as being transferred to be stored out there in that CIP fund, so it can be used to for design or whatever that might look like for whatever those project initiatives are that come out of that visioning process with our community. And then also some city facility maintenance, as I mentioned, with the OMA, and then also city facilities. There is enhanced fire services through the implementation of the study recommendations that you received earlier this year. There are rebates for the economic incentive programs that we have both through NRP and our TIF programs or incentives, as well as the continued 50% participation in the 911 emergency communications budget. I listed to the right some of the things that are deferred service enhancements, largely to let you know that there are other things that we did determine that while they are all important and they are all needs, not necessarily wants, that we would look at either in a different way, either later this year or maybe later next year. We would look for alternate funding sources. We would go back and sharpen the pencil and see what else we could do to be able to accomplish some of these things. But these items to the right, some improvements to your cemeteries, both for the drainage and stone resetting, as well as the road signs, and the law enforcement range improvements, which have been delayed for a couple of years now, and both grant matches for facility improvements that are outstanding, and we're still looking for a way to be able to accomplish some of those or be able to get some of those grant dollars, as well as some of the impact of the positions needed for parks and municipal court. To talk about our mill rate overall, again, remember it's those 4 funds that impact the total mill rate. This is your mill rate history. We've looked at the same graph for the last couple of meetings, but just as a reminder, it has come down over the past couple of years, and what we're proposing to you is a level mill rate with the 2024 mill rate. The very bottom right just shows the difference between city services in the library in that mill rate overall. This is just a little table that shows what the breakdown is of the history of the mill rate for each one of those funds over the last 2 years, and then compared to what we're proposing to you for 2025. again with the level mill rate, and it shows that the assessed valuation increased from the 134 million to the 146 million. Of this, the total out of that 44.844 is for city services is 36.255. And that is reflected here on this graphic. This is, again, something we showed at the last meeting. However, we made some adjustments to these calculations. And I want to start by saying there are a whole lot of assumptions made on this slide, and I'm not recommending that this is distributed necessarily because it's not where we will land potentially. Also, we don't have any indication of where any of these other agencies are even proposing their budgets at this point. So everything on the left of this graphic is where we are today in 2024, and it's something that we had presented to you before really getting into the budget conversations. And the way that this is structured is that we took the $150,000 home that we showed you the tax dollars for initially, and we escalated that by the increase of our assessed valuation. That does not assume that every household realized an 8.4% increase, but we wanted to be able to reflect that some did, and that many probably did see an increase of some sort. So that brought our home value from the $150,000 to $162,600, and then we calculated the taxes beyond that. In order to determine how much the city is shown here on the right, that $677 came as a mere percentage of the overall tax, the overall mill levy. This assumes that everybody else keeps an exact mill rate, and we don't determine what those are going to be. So this is just for our portion to the right. So it could be a potential annual cost by function, and we have broken it out by the functions that I think people recognize most as what they see as city services being. So by public safety, streets, parks, and cemeteries. And we did redistribute the benefits. We understood that including the administration or general support services and plus the benefits was a little confusing in the last graphic. So we split out the cost of those benefits, and those benefits are payroll related, that are CAPERS, KPNF, payroll taxes, insurance, those kinds of things, those types of benefits. We split those out by function here. So those numbers are different from what you saw last time. The total is not. We just broke it out differently by function. For the item that is on the agenda related to just the budget overview, do you have questions about that before we move on to discuss the intent for revenue neutral rate and the setting of the public hearing dates?
Anybody have any questions?
Do you want specific, I guess, line item or budget questions now?
We could do that now if you want, or it depends on what they are.
Yeah,
probably.
I would recommend that because what we're doing is essentially setting the ceiling.
Okay.
And then, so we're saying not to exceed, and then if the commission's looking to make changes below that, we can certainly do that. In fact, right up to the date of the adoption, that can occur. It can go lower, but it can go no higher than what's set today.
That's a good point. I like that idea. Just we're telling the people this is the maximum it's going to go. Chances are it could go lower, and we'll talk about those details and where we can become more efficient. If there's some things we need to cut out, there's some things we need to add on, but we just can't go over this particular rate we're discussing today. And you need to publish that later this month. Is that correct? 20th?
Right. We need to publish it at least 10 days in advance of the public hearing that we set. So we didn't provide the full state budget form to you here because we wanted to go back and look at all the other funds, of course, that are included in there as well. But as far as setting the date, if that needs to be, well, actually, let's go ahead and talk about this form that we need to fill out.
Yep.
I'll skip ahead a slide just to finish that comment there. So what we're completing for the county here is the information that's going to be distributed to all of your residents within the city limits of Ottawa. And so we prepare and provide this form to the county clerk. She distributes that information to every property address within the city limits. So on that form, it does require that we set the public hearing date, and that will be distributed to those residents, as well as our intended or proposed mill rate. That would be the maximum that you would be publishing. So beyond that, then you can lower per fund and overall, but wouldn't be able to increase in any one fund or overall.
Okay, very good. Anybody have more questions on that?
So the item that's on the agenda is the approval or the direction on this form, and we would recommend that you take action to intend to exceed the revenue neutral rate of 43.609 and direct staff to prepare and submit the form to Franklin County.
Okay, this is item 11. Oh, excuse me, 11A, no, 11E. I'm sorry.
In a really simplistic form, and tell me if I'm wrong on this, we are, if we move forward and we do take action saying that we are going to exceed the R&R, which is the baby that came out of Senate Bill 13, it's what a citizen needs to know is we're not looking at like massive increase. This is almost just 0.75%, less than 1% difference. I mean, it's 0.75% increase. That's it. Right. It's like 0.79% or 0.79 of a mil.
Of 1 mil.
Yeah, it's not
right.
even
correct.
0.8 of a mil increase.
Correct.
I mean, so it's not a mass increase. I appreciate what you show there because it's not a huge increase what we're looking at.
Correct. And the intent of the revenue neutral rate, I think that's important as well. The intent is that you would take the same property tax dollars that you received last year and apply them against this year's assessed valuation. And that's how that revenue neutral rate gets calculated. So when we talk about apples to apples, the difference in business year over year isn't necessarily the same, and what's being proposed isn't necessarily exactly the same, but it's the way that these numbers are calculated.
And I need to stand corrected because I actually just took the general fund increase, the R&R mill rate for the general fund, not for the entire assessed, the entire budget. So I stand corrected on that, but still, it's a very small, minute difference between what the R&R is, which is what Senate Bill 13 would like us to do, and what we think we can actually do as a city.
And the intent is for transparency. So
Absolutely.
all we're doing is saying
Yep.
that we're holding a public hearing with the intent to raise $1 more than what was collected last year in property taxes. And in this instance, obviously, it's at a flat mill rate, which means we're for the same dollar generated, we're doing the same as a percentage of our total assessed valuation is all that means. Mm-hmm. It is important to note that if we do place an R&R in place, then any sort of property that receives an abatement as it rolls on, that impact for a rebate from the NRP or the constitutional abatement process will not be received or recognized. So that means essentially that our existing property taxpayers have leveraged their dollars for the incentives that have been offered between that window of time and when they roll onto the books.
And I think just to support the point that City Manager Selcott is making here, in our previous conversations, we discussed what the impact was of those tax rebates that we've given for the programs that we have in place. And specifically for, I'll just pick one fund, but specifically for the general fund, 1 mil equates to $146,000. And we reduced the ad valorem tax coming in because of those rebates by $125,000. So we've nearly taken the value of 1 mil and given that back in tax rebates for improvements it within our community, as well as growth and those incentives that were given. It's similar. It's split similarly across all the different funds, but that's how the calculation occurred. So if you were to go and try to math this out at this point, it's not going to completely math for each one of the funds, because there was an amount reduced out of what the ad valorem taxes would be produced for these mill rates for those tax rebates as well. So
Okay, very good. Do we have a motion for 11E then?
Director Landis?
Yes.
Can you go to, I believe, your next slide? So if we send this in, we're saying that we will not exceed our mill levy of 44,844, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Commissioners, I have some apprehension with posting that number, and the only reason I do is because this budget with that mill levy is stating that we are giving none of our community partners any additional money. I'm not saying that I'm in favor of all of them, but I do believe that there are a couple that I'd like to discuss that maybe they do get some additional funds. So if we publish this number, unless we find some cuts somewhere else, we don't have the ability to give any of those community partners any additional funds.
Well, if I understood, you just made a proposal for those funds. Now, we could use some money, other departments, wherever we figure the money, it can still be increase those community partners and decrease somewhere else. Like, for instance, if we want to put less money into reserve fund somewhere by proportion amount, that could be done with this same mill rate, correct?
Within each one of the funds individually. So I understand where you're coming from there, and included within the general fund is all the transfers that we mentioned. There is a reserve, or it's an amount that's set aside to basically support your beginning fund balance for the next year of $500,000. And in addition to, we went over some of those budget highlights last week when we talked about the amounts that we've set aside for there were some new positions and salary and benefit changes, some new professional services, facility improvements, the operating equipment, and then of course the transfers that we just talked about to support some of those other improvements in the other funds. So we would have to make an adjustment to those. If you publish this and you wanted to add back funds for community partners, yes, we'd have to go back and make adjustments to what that list looks like. If we know what you're looking towards, I think that's a exercise that we can best do outside of here and bring that back to you as a recommendation later before that budget is adopted at some future point. If you are suggesting that today you want to publish something higher, we need to determine what that new or different mill rate might look like. So those are really your two options at this point.
And I'm okay with having the discussions about maybe there's some cuts to be made, which is fine. I just don't want to publish a number with that if we can't find any cuts, we're not able to give additional funds to community partners because we've already posted that mill rate levy that we're saying we will not exceed. That's my only concern.
And that's a good point there. I feel like, though, just simplify it, if we agree to, say, $25,000 increase to our community partners in general overall, we can certainly find 25,000 cuts somewhere else within the size of this budget. Am I right? We'll talk about it later.
We will have to go back and determine where that would come from.
Because I keep thinking, I look at some of
Or
these.
you could do a fractional mill increase to where you're still under a mill, but yet it's like a 0.01 or, you know, what I'm saying, it would be a 1/10 as opposed to.
And this is just a published number, and that's why I'm saying maybe we publish it a little higher because we can always discuss it back down.
I know, and if this is the time, I think something I would like to bring up too that ties to this mill rate would be looking again at the TGT as a possible funding source for some of these community partners. I mentioned several weeks ago, and I'd be remiss to not bring it up again, that we need to discuss streets. We are not putting enough money in, and however that looks, we need to talk about it. Kind of going through the street budgets and stuff and the capital improvement plan for all of that. I think that's also something we need to discuss kind of in terms of this number as well. And so I think, you know, TGT funds potentially, if we want to look at something like that. I think community partners actively tied to transient guests, they're a great benefit to that. And so I think that could, unless statutorily we can't use those funds for that, I will defer to the county or city attorney, sorry, on that. But if we could use those funds for those types of things, that's kind of where I would be looking for that stuff, Commissioner Crowley.
This is where I wish that we had a better format in which that we could have a conversation, because I can't see what Commissioner Crowley is doing, and it doesn't promote conversation. I can't see what Commissioner Graves is doing, or I'm sorry, Commissioner Allen is doing. I can't, so this doesn't work for a conversation about budgeting. It has nothing to do with you, Director Leontis. It just,
Certainly.
it doesn't work so that we can all work together to see what works best for our community. There's so lack of collaboration that can happen in this design. It's obviously been a huge concern for me for over a year. But I have heartache over publishing much over this rate that we have in this particular form. I do think there are other avenues that we can utilize to help support not only community service budgets, but I want to remember the budgets of our city departments, in which that we're talking about taking stuff out of the budget. It's going to be out of one of their budgets, and we talk about our employees and our city amenities and our city and overall our city and how important it is. But now we're saying, hey, we're going to go ahead and take stuff out of their budget to give to community service. So I have a heartache of saying to our departments to say, hey, you know what? Sorry, you're going to have to cut your budget because we're going to give to community service budgets. That feels weird to me. It's always felt very odd and very unsettling to say to police department or fire department or public works or streets, hey, we're going to take some money out of your budget so we can put it somewhere else. But I do have heartache over going much over the proposed mill levy. I do think there's certainly creative ways that we could find some funds. We have sales tax that we can certainly look at. TGT is certainly we can look at. I mean, we have Janet Paddock, who is saying we'll have a rebate coming our way from 911, and certainly something we can look at utilizing those funds. And so I think that there are things that we can do. Have a heartache on going much above what is listed in the document in front of us.
To that point, in the mention of other revenue sources, we did not include that into our budget strategy simply because it hasn't been rediscussed, hasn't been approved. There's a window of time period after that before it actually could even go into place, and then the time period of which it would even become available to us and then build over time in 2025. So we didn't build that in, but those are all good opportunities for you to supplement your general fund budget or those other activities, even your OMA budget and all of those things that do attract tourism within the community.
And I certainly agree with you, commissioners, and along those lines. I absolutely want to have those conversations about TGT and things. Hello, how are you?
Hi.
And I want to have those conversations. My concern is we're setting the budget for 2025. So Main Street's not going to know if they're going to have enough funding for, a full-time director at this point. And that's what I'm trying to get out there is if we can kind of give them some direction on where we're going to, that they're going to have that funding. And Main Street's just one example. They're going to have that funding to move forward with whatever those additional funds they were requesting were. That's what I'm looking for more. So yes, let's have those conversations and hopefully we can get those funds available and we can distribute them accordingly. But I'm trying to move forward with 2025 and how we, tell our community partners what they can do next year.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And once again, like I said, we can always discuss it down. And I agree. I'm not trying to go significantly higher. What the additional funds for community partners, and not all of them, I think were roughly 40, 50.
Sorry, let me.
No, they were
move back up
100.
to that.
Well, I'll just put it out there. I'm not a big fit. At this point, I'm not willing to have the conversation with Prairie Paws about that additional position.
Yeah, there's $123,000 difference.
Which Prairie Paws was what, 55,000. So if you subtract, I'm sorry, how much did you say was the addition?
Oh, is it just?
Yeah, 55,200.
What was the, what are their additional requests this year?
I don't have those on the table.
55,200.
No, okay, but is the additional for everybody
It's that-
178, or is that including what they typically get?
No, the total requested was 271,467, and the level funding is 178,455.
Well, no, the total requested, including new requests.
Well, new requests. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I didn't hear. Yes, the total new requests included were 296.
And we're proposing 178, so the addition is 120,000.
Yes.
So if we subtract the 55 from Prairie Falls, we're roughly 65.
Yes.
Which is half a mil, roughly. So what I'm suggesting is a 45.344. That's half a mil. And like I said, we're just posting that. We're just publishing that. That's not where we're going. We can always have that discussion, and that can certainly come back to that 48,844.
I say we don't go over 45 flat. If we're gonna do anything above what's listed in the document.
And I think certainly we can come back with a combination thereof. Plus, we can present a draft transient guest tax for discussion in a subsequent meeting here. Just bear in mind that once it's adopted, we have a publication, a hearing notice, and a protest period essentially of 60 days. And I would defer to the city attorney for the nuances of that
I think
process.
Commissioner Carter's made a good point. Maybe 45 would be a number to work from, and we work down from there if we so choose. That would give an extra $23,000, I guess, if my numbers are right. But still, give us a ceiling. Yeah.
And I might also contribute just to the conversation. Those I don't remember which one of you mentioned it, but those revenue estimates are based on everything we knew as of the time that we put this together last month. And over the next month or month and a half before we get back together, that could change. Our sales tax could go up a little bit. And in the comment that you made about the amount coming back from 911, we only included the 35,000 from last year, 34 something from last year, and she indicated it could be closer to 70. So those revenue estimates could change, which of course would then begin to roll over. And in addition to, we have the conversation about, do you want to just reduce that from that reserved amount that we've used to support the beginning fund balance for the upcoming year. So there is some opportunity there to kind of strategize how we and come back with some new revenue estimates as well. So
very good. And I think on this, again, I was like taxes and everything. It is very confusing. This is a number to not exceed. We're not setting a budget today. We're just
not to exceed.
Saying here is a number we cannot go past.
That's
so I think
true.
Remembering that we can adjust that number to whatever under that, just not over, is something to keep in mind.
You do want to keep in mind that mill rate is set off of the ad valorem taxes that are needed. It's once we actually publish the public hearing notice, however, you wouldn't be able to change your total expenditures or the ad valorem for that one fund. So between the setting this maximum and submitting the form to Franklin County and setting the public hearing date, those are two items that you can take up today. But we wouldn't publish that public hearing notice until we know exactly where you want to land on your expenditures in total and make sure that we don't have an issue with adding a transfer is an additional expense, even if you're just moving money around to make that happen. So we would want to go back and just look at those numbers one more time and bring it back to you for an additional conversation before we actually publish the state budget document for that public hearing. So you're correct. This would just be setting what that max would be. That will go on the notice to the residents from Franklin County, just notifying them that there will be a public hearing on a set date. And before we publish the detail of that, then we would want to nail down where you'd like to be.
Okay, let's open up for a motion if anyone has one for 11E.
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner.
I'll make a motion to approve item 11E, notice of indication to exceed revenue neutral rate with an amount amended to 45 flat instead of the 44,844.
Is there a second for that?
I'll second.
There's a second. Any other discussion?
Just quick point of clarification. So that's 1.56.
And we'll reflect that in the general fund.
Yeah, and you're gonna do it in the general fund, right? So their motion is for, okay, just making sure that we were anticipating that we weren't going to allocate it somewhere else.
No. Okay. Any other discussion? All right, let's have a roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Mayor Pro Tem Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
And Mayor Skidmore?
I vote yes too. That motion carries. And then as far as approving the date, we need to do that as well, right?
Yes, and let me flip back to that slide real quick. This is one of the more simple tasks for us. The soonest that we would be able to adopt a budget is anytime after August 20th. And that is in order for the county to give enough time for those residents to receive the notice that there is a public hearing. And the next regular meeting, that's a 7 p.m. meeting, is the first Wednesday in September. So that's why that date is being proposed as September 4th at 7 p.m. And this is a combined hearing, so we do, under that Senate Bill 13, we do have to hold a public hearing to exceed R&R, and we have to hold a public hearing to adopt the budget, and they do offer the opportunity to do it as a combined hearing. And so when we do publish that, it would be listed as such.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Commissioner.
Go ahead.
Were you going?
I was going to make a motion, but
Okay,
go
well,
ahead.
I was looking for a point of clarification, and I certainly will stand corrected if this is right or wrong or whatever I've done here. But do I remember that when we were talking about in the operating budget that we actually had put a line item in there for mailing cost for the 911, not for 911, the mailing cost for the R&R?
We did for 2025. So it was originally supposed to be for 24. They've moved that now as our responsibility for 25.
Okay, so, and I'm looking at Janet because I knew Janet. Thank you, Janet, for still being here. So it was punted back to the local governments to pay that now, correct? Or they
haven't, they said that they could extend that. They have not said they're going to extend that yet. The 24 will be paid for. 25 looks at the current time like local authorities will have to pay.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for.
And the number specifically was around $5,400.
Yeah,
and
that's fine.
We worked together on.
I just
trying
know
to
there was a
determine what that amount.
conversation
Yes.
about how that was going to be.
And that depends on how many people under this jurisdiction are participating in that. So, I mean, obviously you have the county, you have the school district, which are both large entities. If all three of us decide to go over, you're probably looking at a third of the expenditures. Frontier Extension is going over this year, so they would be participating in that also. And we've yet to see a formula of how we're supposed to distribute that, if that's based on valuation, if that's based on number of rooftops. We don't know what that formula looks like. The state hasn't given us.
So it's simple, is what you're telling me.
Super simple.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on this or a motion on item 11F?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve item 11F on our agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second. Any other discussion? If not, let's roll call vote quickly.
How do you vote, Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
And Mayor Skidmore?
I vote yes, that motion carries. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
We'll go on as comments, brief comments by city manager. You think I'm in a hurry?
He's got a video for it.
And the most extensive comments will be the video, as we're just showing kind of what we have slotted for the coming commission meeting. And so from that, I will turn it over to our state and nationally award-winning multimedia and
The following is a public service announcement from the City of Ottawa.
On this joyous occasion of Canada Day, we wish you all a fantastic celebration filled with pride and happiness. As you share your festive moments on social media, send messages, or make calls, we kindly remind you that there is more than one Ottawa in the world. Please take a moment to ensure your greetings and posts are intended for Ottawa, Ontario, the capital of Canada, and not our wonderful city of Ottawa, Kansas. Please tweet, text, and message responsibly. This has been a message from your friendly neighbors to the south. Ottawa, Kansas.
And Chief has reported there is one other Ottawa, so there's only 3 that we know of. One's in Ohio, I believe.
Illinois.
Illinois, sorry.
Yeah.
I was part of an NPR report several years ago when I was mayor that they did all the Ottawas in the world.
We'll have to try and track that
cool.
down.
Yeah,
That'd be cool.
Do that.
And I say that because my brother-in-law's Canadian,
Yeah.
so.
Oh, okay. Had the music and everything. That was great. Good job, guys.
Oh, Canada.
Yes, that's right.
Not Canada. This hashtag not Canada.
And then this will conclude my report, just to know that we are blessed to be under a double rainbow.
She was not excited to be up taking that picture, just everyone know that. My teenager.
All right. Commissioner's report. Let's start with Commissioner Crowley.
I have no report.
Okay. Commissioner Clayton.
I just want to shout out John and Chad again on the Emerging Leaders Academy and how great that is. And then it was brought up by Jack, the articulating your vision and the vision of the community kind of falling to us. And so I want to kind of just bring that out as well, that that is our job to kind of define, and then the community at large to articulate and share.
Great. Commissioner Kaler.
Yeah, I actually had notes too, to congratulate John and Chad on their commitment to growth in our community. And so thank you for doing that. And thank you for really putting yourself forward to be a part of expanding yourself as a leader in our community. I also want to thank Eric Duderstack for his thoughtful words and the evolution of Main Street. I think he put it together really well, and I'm so glad that he brought a young citizen with him, and we need more young involved citizens. So always glad to see a young Duderstadt or even just a young Ottawan here.
That's great. And Pro Tem Allen.
I have no comment.
Okay. I just have a couple things too. I guess we should be talking about Jack as far as a participant of our planning commission. If we want to take a motion on that, I'll sure entertain one right now.
I move that we appoint Jack Maxwell to the planning commission.
Very good. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's lots of seconds. Take your pick. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Someone please inform Jack, I guess, and we'll begin. Appreciate his service to our community. Just real quick, I want to say, Power of the Past, we thank you for your contribution for the shelter house in Forest Park. I just happened to be there playing disc golf last week and saw it's all done. Looks nice. I believe Commissioner Crowley, did you donate some electrical work on that, I believe? So thank you for your in-kind effort and work on that, making that happen. We all appreciate that. Yesterday, also, I wanted to say that Ottawa was designated as a certified gigabit city by Quickcom. We had a nice ceremony at the courthouse lawn. They gave us this plaque that says Certified Gigabit City, powered by Quickcom Communication Company, Ottawa, Kansas 2024. So we'll put this in a prominent place in our city hall somewhere, as well as a plaque that goes along with that. So I really appreciate their commitment to Ottawa, their vision, their investment. It's exciting to see what we'll be doing with that. And they've got things they say they provide, I think it's 10,000 megabits per second on the internet. And I don't know exactly what I just said, but I guess it's a good thing I hear. So that's the main thing. It's a good thing. So we're glad to have them as community partners. And also, lastly, I want to thank Lisa Rivers. Her 4-H group brought some treats here for us to enjoy. I think it's pretty timely, being that it's about lunchtime anyway. So we'll enjoy these later. But Lisa, thank you for bringing these treats to us. We do need the executive session.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Chris Martin.
Just to, for the commission's knowledge and for the public, the intention today is to have 2 executive sessions, one for non-elected personnel to protect the privacy of an employee while we conduct an employee evaluation with the commission. I have reserved the study session room next door, so the intention would be if you make the motion to recess into executive session that we would go next door. You can have the conversation. And then when that process is done, we'll be requesting a short executive session under attorney-client privilege to engage in privileged and confidential communication between myself as the board's attorney and the board, along with the city manager. We do not anticipate any action being taken for either one of these executive sessions, and basically the only item of business when they're concluded will be adjournment. And so for the public, there's no need to wait around unless you just want to, and certainly are welcome to do that. But that way we kind of have a run of show for what's going to happen. I'm requesting 30 minutes for the first executive session for non-elected personnel, and for those reasons and justification that I previously stated, which can be reflected in the minutes. And Mr. Mayor, as you customarily do, you might want to give a 5-minute break here for folks to stretch their legs, and then we'll reconvene in the study session room if the commission is amenable to that proposal.
Okay, is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. I hope there's no motion carried.